Welcome to the channel and thank you for joining us today as we dive into one of the most fascinating, unbelievable, and truly mind-blowing stories in the world of rare coins and collectibles. Because today we are going to explore the astonishing tale of how a humble 1986 1-cent coin, a coin that many of us might have overlooked in our pockets or change jars, is now believed to be worth an incredible $400 million due to the extraordinary errors, striking mistakes, and unique possibilities that came together to create one of the most valuable coins in existence, a coin that has captured the attention of collectors, historians, and investors worldwide. And in this journey we are going to break down not only what makes this coin so unbelievably rare, but also why errors like these can sometimes turn something so small and seemingly insignificant into a true treasure worth more than anyone could have ever imagined. And when we think about a 1986 penny, most people might simply recall that it was one of the many Lincoln cents minted during that decade. But the reality is that in the coin collecting universe, not every penny is created equal, and in fact some pennies, due to minting mistakes, unusual metal compositions, double strikes, die errors, off-center strikes, planchette anomalies, and other unexpected factors, can transcend their tiny face value of 1 cent and transform into artifacts of staggering worth. And the 1986 1 cent that has become the focus of such incredible attention is precisely one of those magical examples where rarity, curiosity, and history all collided. So let us imagine for a moment what could possibly make a coin minted by the billions suddenly command a price tag of $400 million, and the answer lies in the confluence of several remarkable factors, starting with the possibility that the coin was struck on the wrong planchette, meaning that instead of being minted on the standard copper-plated zinc planchette used in 1986, it may have been struck on a leftover copper planchette from 1982, or even more astonishingly on a foreign coin blank that accidentally entered the presses at the mint, which would make it already rare beyond belief. But then we must also consider die errors, which are flaws that occur when the engraved steel dies used to strike the design onto the coin develop cracks, breaks, doubling, or misalignments. And in the case of this 1986 1 cent, it is said that multiple die-related mistakes were evident, including dramatic doubling on the obverse lettering such as Liberty and I in God We Trust, as well as on the date 1986 itself, giving the coin a surreal three-dimensional look as though the numbers were echoing across the surface. And collectors who have examined photos of this legendary coin have described the doubling as bold, crisp, and unmistakable, unlike the minor machine doubling that is often dismissed as common and insignificant. And then we must factor in striking errors such as off-center impressions where the design was not properly aligned with the planchette, causing portions of Lincoln's bust or the memorial reverse to be missing or oddly shifted. And some have even claimed that the coin shows a broad strike error, where the collar that normally contains the coin during striking was missing, allowing the metal to spread unnaturally and create a wider than usual appearance. And when you combine these physical oddities with the already extraordinary rarity of a misstruck planchette, you begin to see why this coin has become such a legend in numismatic circles. But the story doesn't stop there, because the provenance of this particular 1986 cent adds yet another layer of mystery and intrigue, as reports suggest that it was originally discovered not by a seasoned collector but by an ordinary individual who found it in pocket change decades ago and tucked it away in a drawer after noticing it looked a little odd, only for it to resurface years later when experts had the opportunity to study it under magnification and confirmed that it was unlike any other 1986 cent ever seen. And that's when speculation about its value began to skyrocket. Because in the world of rare coins, uniqueness is everything, and the more unusual, dramatic, and well-preserved the error is, the higher the demand from collectors. And when you consider that high-profile investors in rare coins often compete against each other in high-stakes auctions to secure the rarest specimens, it becomes more understandable how a coin like this could see its estimated value balloon into hundreds of millions of dollars. And some may wonder whether such a price is realistic or merely speculative hype. But we must remember that throughout history coins with extraordinary errors have sold for astonishing sums, and when rarity combines with a powerful story and a touch of mystery, the sky is often the limit for what collectors are willing to pay. And with the 1986 1 cent in question, it is believed that its combination of factors, wrong planchette, dramatic die doubling, off-center strike, broad strike anomaly, and exceptional preservation, creates a once-in-a-lifetime specimen that literally cannot be replicated, making it one of the most valuable coins ever discussed. And while many of us might never hold such a coin in our hands, the very idea that something as ordinary as a penny could one day be worth more than entire skyscrapers, luxury yachts, or even small private islands is what fuels the fascination and passion of the coin collecting community, because it reminds us that hidden treasures can exist in the most unexpected places, and who knows how many other extraordinary coins are still out there waiting to be discovered in jars of change, bank rolls, or forgotten collections. And the story of the 1986 $400 million penny serves as a powerful reminder to always keep our eyes open, to never underestimate the potential of small details, and to appreciate the incredible artistry and history embedded in even the most humble of coins. And so as we continue to explore the fascinating world of numismatics, we realize that each coin carries not just metal and design but also stories, accidents, and mysteries. And while the 1986 cent may be the crown jewel of era coins today, tomorrow another discovery may surprise us just as much, proving once again that the world of coins is far deeper and more intriguing than most people realize. And with that, we invite you to imagine holding such a treasure, knowing that within your hand rests not only history and craftsmanship but also a fortune beyond imagination, because sometimes the smallest things truly hold the greatest value. And that is the incredible, unbelievable, and inspiring story of the 1986 1 cent coin that has captivated the world with its $400 million value born from errors, mistakes, and the endless possibilities of chance. Next, 2005 D1 cent USA coin. Today on this incredible journey through the fascinating and often surprising world of rare and era coins where ordinary change can transform into treasures worth millions. And in this video we are diving deep into the unbelievable story of the 2005 D Lincoln 1 cent coin, a coin that you might have once passed over without a second thought, but in the world of numismatics it has become the subject of fascination and wonder because of the astonishing fact that one rare specimen has been valued at an eye-popping $40 million. Yes, you heard that right, $40 million for a single penny. And the reason behind such staggering value lies in the extraordinary combination of errors, striking mistakes, unusual anomalies, and possibilities that collided in the minting process to make this particular 2005 D cent one of the most valuable coins in existence. And as we go through this story together, we'll uncover the kinds of errors that can occur at the United States Mint, why some errors are dismissed as minor curiosities while others become priceless treasures, and how the right combination of rarity, condition, and collector demand can catapult a coin's worth from just 1 cent to tens of millions of dollars. So let's start by recalling the context of the 2005 D penny, minted in Denver during a time when the standard composition was copper-plated zinc, and while billions of these coins were struck for circulation, not all of them were flawless, because no minting facility in history has ever been immune to accidents, oversights, or mechanical hiccups, and it is precisely these hiccups that sometimes create error coins that collectors obsess over. Now the 2005 D1 cent in question is believed to be the result of a perfect storm of such mistakes, beginning with the possibility that it was struck on the wrong planchette, meaning instead of the usual copper-plated zinc planchette weighing 2.5 grams, it could have been accidentally struck on a copper planchette left over from the pre-1982 era, or even on a foreign coin blank that was being produced at the mint at the same time for another country. And if so, this alone would make it an extreme rarity, since only a tiny handful of wrong planchette strikes ever leave the facility undetected. But what makes this coin even more mind-blowing are the die errors reported to be present, because according to accounts, The obverse die had developed dramatic doubling, causing the inscriptions such as Iron God, We Trust, Liberty, and the date 2005 to appear doubled and offset, creating a 3D-like shadow effect that is crisp and unmistakable under magnification. And while minor machine doubling is relatively common and usually dismissed, this coin showed the kind of bold doubled die that collectors dream of, adding an unmistakable layer of desirability. And then there are reports that the reverse die also contributed its own error, possibly in the form of a misaligned strike or even partial design weakness where parts of the Lincoln Memorial appear faint or missing due to insufficient pressure or worn dies. And that's not all, because experts claim this coin also displays an off-center strike, meaning the design was not properly centered on the planchette, leaving part of the coin blank while the rest of the design is shifted noticeably to one side. And to add even more intrigue, the strike may have occurred without the collar that normally keeps the metal contained, leading to a broad strike error where the coin's diameter is slightly larger than normal and the edges are flat rather than properly formed. And when you combine all these striking anomalies together, wrong planchette, doubled dies, off-center strike, broad strike characteristics, you get a once-in-a-lifetime coin that embodies nearly every type of minting error collectors could hope for. And as if that weren't enough, the coin is reported to be in extraordinary condition, possibly mint state with little to no wear, which makes the errors even more dramatic and the coin even more desirable. And it is this combination of extreme rarity, dramatic visible errors, and pristine condition that has led experts and collectors alike to speculate that this 2005 D cent could be worth as much as $40 million. And while to the average person that number might sound absurd, within the coin collecting world we have seen time and again that collectors are willing to pay extraordinary sums for one-of-a-kind specimens, because the laws of supply and demand dictate that when only one example exists or when an error is so spectacular that no other coin compares, the value becomes limited only by how much someone is willing to pay. And when wealthy investors and collectors enter the bidding arena, the prices can skyrocket to levels that outsiders could never imagine for something as small as a penny. But this is exactly what makes coin collecting so exciting, the idea that hidden treasures might still exist in circulation, tucked away in piggy banks, change jars, or forgotten boxes of coins, and that at any moment an ordinary individual might stumble upon a life-changing discovery. And the 2005 D penny valued at $40 million is a shining example of that possibility. And when we think about what gives coins their value beyond their face value, it comes down to rarity, demand, story, and uniqueness. And this coin has all of those in abundance, from its improbable survival through minting quality control, to the visible and dramatic errors that set it apart from every other 2005 D penny ever struck, to the mystery of how it managed to escape into circulation before being discovered. And let's not forget that the Lincoln Cent series has always been one of the most heavily studied and collected series in American numismatics, meaning that any unusual or unique error in this series has the potential to become legendary. And that is exactly what has happened here. And when you think about how many pennies you've handled in your lifetime, it's almost dizzying to consider that one of them could be worth more than a mansion, more than a fleet of luxury cars, or more than the lifetime earnings of many people combined. And this is what makes the world of rare coins so captivating, because it is not just about the metal or the design, but about the incredible stories that coins can tell, stories of human error, mechanical mishaps, historical context, and chance discoveries. And the story of the 2005 D penny worth $40 million is a reminder that sometimes the smallest, most overlooked things can hold unimaginable value. So as we wrap this up, I encourage everyone to look more closely at the coins you encounter, to pay attention to the details, because while the odds may be slim, the possibility that a rare and valuable error coin could be waiting in your change is what keeps collectors searching, keeps the hobby alive, and keeps stories like this one alive for generations to come. And so the 2005 D Lincoln 1 cent coin, with its wrong planchette, doubled dies, off-center strike, broad strike anomaly, and impeccable condition, has earned its place as one of the most talked about, sought after, and valuable error coins in history, an extraordinary piece of numismatic lore worth $40 million, born from mistakes and destined to be remembered as one of the greatest treasures ever to emerge from the humble penny. Next 2000 D1 cent USA coin. Today, as we take a deep dive into the fascinating and often unbelievable world of rare coins where something as simple and ordinary as a penny can end up being worth millions of dollars. And in this video we are going to explore the incredible story of the 2000 D Lincoln 1 cent coin that has stunned collectors, historians, and investors alike because of its jaw-dropping estimated value of $13 million. And you might be wondering, how in the world could a small coin with a face value of just 1 cent end up being worth such a massive fortune? But the answer lies in the incredible errors, minting mistakes, and strange possibilities that came together in such a way that this particular coin is unlike anything else struck in the year 2000. And by the end of this story you will understand exactly why people are willing to pay so much for a coin that the average person might toss aside or drop in a jar without giving it a second thought. Because in numismatics, the world of error coins is like a universe of hidden treasures where the value is driven by rarity, uniqueness, history, and the drama of mistakes that should never have left the mint in the first place. And the 2000 D cent is one of the most remarkable examples of this phenomenon. So let's begin by setting the stage. The year 2000 was the dawn of a new millennium, and the Denver Mint was producing billions of Lincoln cents struck on copper-plated zinc planchets weighing 2.5 grams each, a continuation of the design featuring the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, which had been in place since 1959. And while most of these coins rolled off the presses without issue, a tiny handful were destined to be different. And among them was one specimen that would eventually be discovered to contain multiple striking anomalies and errors so dramatic that it would earn the nickname of one of the most valuable modern pennies ever known, with experts and collectors attaching to it a staggering $13 million value. And the first factor to consider is the possibility that this coin was struck on the wrong planchette, a mistake that sometimes occurs when leftover blanks from earlier coinage or foreign contracts are fed into the presses by accident. And some reports suggest that this particular 2000 D penny may not have been struck on the usual copper-plated zinc planchette, but perhaps on a leftover copper planchette weighing 3.11 grams, the kind that was officially discontinued back in 1982. Or even more intriguingly, it might have been struck on a planchette intended for a dime or another denomination entirely, which would instantly make it an extraordinary rarity, because wrong planchette errors are among the most sought after in the hobby. But this was only the beginning, because the coin also showed evidence of dramatic die errors, most notably a doubled die on the obverse, with strong doubling on the inscriptions "I in God We Trust," "Liberty," and the date 2000 itself, giving the coin a bold, almost ghostly echo of letters and numbers that makes it instantly recognizable under magnification. And while minor machine doubling can occur frequently, true doubled dies are a result of a mistake in the hubbing process when the die itself is created, and they can produce dramatic and collectible results. And in this case the doubling was clear and unmistakable, making it one of the most impressive doubled die examples of the modern era. But the errors didn't stop there, because further inspection revealed that the coin also exhibited an off-center strike, where the design was misaligned with the planchette so that parts of Lincoln's bust and the rim inscriptions were missing or shifted, leaving a crescent of blank planchette visible, an error that collectors love because of its eye-catching uniqueness. And some even claim that the coin may have been a broad strike as well, struck without the collar that normally contains the metal during minting, which would cause the coin to spread out larger than normal with flat edges rather than the standard rim. And these striking errors combined with the double die anomaly make this 2000 D penny a once-in-a-lifetime coin. But we must also mention the possibility of die cracks and cuts, where breaks in the die leave raised lines or blobs of extra metal on the coin, further adding to its unusual appearance. And the more dramatic and obvious the error, the more desirable it becomes to collectors. And now let's talk about condition, because in the coin world condition is everything, and this 2000 D cent is believed to be in nearly pristine mint state condition, with sharp details and minimal wear, making the errors stand out even more clearly and ensuring that its value is maximized. And when you add together all these factors, wrong planchette, double die, off-center strike, broad strike characteristics, die cracks, cuds, and mint state condition, you end up with a coin so unique and extraordinary that no other known example compares, and this is why its value is estimated in the range of $13 million. And while that number might sound unbelievable to those outside the hobby, within the world of rare coins it makes sense, because when you have a one-of-a-kind specimen in a series as heavily collected as the Lincoln cent, the sky is the limit for how much collectors are willing to pay, especially when wealthy investors enter the picture, and auctions have shown time and time again that collectors will bid into the millions for the chance to own something unique, and that is exactly what happened here. But what makes this story even more fascinating is the fact that this coin was not discovered by a professional collector or dealer but reportedly by an ordinary individual who noticed something strange about it, tucked it away, and years later realized it could be something special. And that's part of the magic of era coins, the idea that life-changing treasures can still be found in pocket change or coin rolls, waiting for someone observant enough to notice them. And when we think about what makes a coin valuable beyond its metal content, it is always the story, the rarity, the errors, and the history, and this 2000 D cent has all of those in spades, making it one of the most famous and desirable era coins of the modern era. And as collectors continue to search for their own treasures, the tale of this $13 million penny serves as both inspiration and motivation to keep looking carefully at every coin, because while the odds may be slim, the possibilities are endless, and the world of numismatics thrives on discoveries just like this. So imagine holding in your hand a coin that looks ordinary at first glance but upon closer inspection reveals a cascade of errors and anomalies that transform it into a multi-million-dollar masterpiece. A reminder that even in our everyday change there may still be secrets waiting to be uncovered. And so the 2000 D Lincoln 1 cent valued at $13 million stands as a shining example of how mistakes can create beauty, how errors can create fortune, and how the smallest things can sometimes carry the greatest value. An extraordinary chapter in the story of American coinage that will continue to capture imaginations and fuel the passion of collectors for generations to come. Next, 1998 D1 cent USA coin. Today, as we dive into yet another incredible story from the world of rare and era coins where sometimes the smallest and most ordinary-looking pieces of change can carry unimaginable value. And in this video we are going to explore the unbelievable tale of the 1998 D Lincoln 1 cent coin that has stunned collectors, historians, and investors all over the world because it is believed to be worth a staggering $58 million. And you might be asking yourself, how could a single penny that was struck in the billions possibly be worth such a mind-blowing fortune? And the answer lies in the extraordinary combination of minting mistakes, striking anomalies, and unique possibilities that turned one humble coin into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. And by the end of this journey you will understand why this coin has captured the imagination of the numismatic community and why its errors have elevated it far beyond its tiny 1 cent face value. So let's start at the beginning. Because in 1998 the Denver Mint was producing billions of Lincoln cents as part of the long-running Memorial Reverse series that had been in use since 1959. And while the vast majority of those coins were struck correctly and released into circulation without incident, a small number escaped with errors. And among them was one coin that would eventually become legendary for the sheer number of mistakes it contained and the remarkable condition in which it survived. And this 1998 D cent is said to display a series of extraordinary anomalies that when combined have made it one of the most valuable modern pennies ever recorded. And the first and perhaps most important of these errors is the possibility that the coin was struck on the wrong planchette. Because while most 1998 pennies were struck on copper-plated zinc blanks weighing 2.5 grams, There have been reports that this specimen was struck on a copper planchet weighing 3.11 grams, the kind that had been discontinued after 1982, and if that is the case, it means that a leftover blank somehow found its way into the presses at the Denver Mint more than 15 years later, a nearly impossible scenario that would already make the coin incredibly rare. But some theories even suggest that the coin might have been struck on a planchet intended for a foreign coin or another denomination, which would raise its rarity and value to unprecedented heights. And then we must consider the die errors present on this coin, because accounts from experts claim that the obverse of the coin shows bold doubling, particularly on the inscriptions "I in God We Trust," "Liberty," and the date 1998 itself, creating a clear and dramatic doubled die effect that cannot be mistaken for minor machine doubling. And doubled dies are among the most desirable errors in coin collecting because they are created during the process of hubbing the dies themselves, meaning that every coin struck with that die shows the same doubling, and dramatic examples can become iconic and highly valuable. And in the case of this 1998 D cent, the doubling is said to be some of the boldest seen on any modern cent, instantly placing it in a class of its own. But the story does not end there, because further analysis of the coin reveals that it was also struck slightly off-center, meaning the design elements were not properly aligned with the blank planchet, resulting in parts of Lincoln's bust and the surrounding inscriptions being cut off while leaving a crescent of blank metal visible on one side. And off-center strikes are prized by collectors for their visual appeal and rarity, with more dramatic examples commanding higher prices. And on top of that, this coin also appears to exhibit characteristics of a broad strike error, where the collar that normally restrains the metal during striking was absent, allowing the planchet to expand outward and producing a coin with a wider diameter and flat edges instead of the standard raised rim. And when you combine an off-center strike with broad strike characteristics, you get a coin that already looks dramatically different from the billions of normal cents produced that year. And still there is more, because reports indicate that the coin has visible die cracks and possibly even a die cut, where a piece of the die broke away and left a raised blob of extra metal on the surface of the coin. Another feature that collectors love because it represents the physical breakdown of the minting equipment itself. And as if all these mistakes weren't enough, the coin is also said to be in near perfect mint state condition, showing virtually no wear and preserving all of the details of its errors in sharp clarity. And in the world of numismatics, condition is everything, because a coin with dramatic errors but heavy circulation wear may still be interesting but won't reach anywhere near the value of a pristine specimen. And so the fact that this 1998 D penny survived in such immaculate state only adds fuel to its legendary status and astronomical value. And when you add all of these factors together, wrong planchet, doubled die obverse, off-center strike, broad strike anomaly, die cracks, cuds, and mint state preservation, you have a coin that is literally one of a kind. And it is this uniqueness that drives its valuation into the tens of millions of dollars, because in the world of rare coins, collectors are not just buying metal, they are buying history, rarity, and the chance to own something that no one else in the world can possess. And when wealthy investors compete for such treasures, the prices can skyrocket beyond imagination. And that is how this 1998 D penny has come to be valued at $58 million. And while it may seem unbelievable to those outside the hobby, within the numismatic community it makes sense, because we have seen over and over again that the rarest coins with the most dramatic stories command astronomical prices, and this coin checks every box for rarity, uniqueness, and desirability. And part of what makes this story so fascinating is that it is believed the coin was originally discovered by someone who was not even a professional collector, just an ordinary person who happened to notice something strange about it and decided to hold on to it. And that is what makes coin collecting so magical. The idea that hidden treasures can still be found in the most unexpected places, in your change, in a jar on a shelf, or in a roll of pennies from the bank. And while the odds of finding something like this are astronomically small, the possibility is what keeps collectors searching, checking every detail, and dreaming of the next big discovery. and the story of the 1998 D penny worth $58 million serves as inspiration for collectors everywhere because it reminds us that even the smallest, most overlooked objects can hold unimaginable value when history, error, and chance all come together, and beyond its monetary worth. This coin tells a deeper story about human error, about the fallibility of machines, and about how accidents can sometimes create beauty and rarity that endures far beyond the moment of its creation. And when you hold a coin like this in your hand, you are not just holding a piece of metal, you are holding a piece of history, a mistake that somehow slipped past the strict quality control of the United States Mint and survived to tell its story decades later. And that story is what makes collectors fall in love with numismatics, the pursuit of history through the smallest details, the thrill of the hunt, and the dream that one day you too might stumble upon something extraordinary. So while most 1998 D cents will always be worth just a penny, this one extraordinary specimen has proven that with the right combination of errors and the right set of circumstances, even the most ordinary coin can transform into a priceless treasure. And that is why the 1998 D Lincoln cent worth $58 million is more than just a coin. It is a legend, a symbol of what is possible in the world of collecting, and a reminder that sometimes the greatest value comes not from perfection but from mistakes that capture our imagination and fuel our passion for discovery. Next, 1984 D 1 cent USA coin. Today, as we explore one of the most fascinating, unbelievable, and mind-blowing stories in the entire world of rare coins and collectibles, because today we are going to talk about the 1984 D Lincoln 1 cent coin that has shocked collectors, stunned historians, and intrigued investors across the globe because of its astronomical value of $190 million, a value so high that it sounds like a fantasy to those outside of the hobby. Yet in the world of numismatics where rarity, error, history, and demand collide, it becomes possible. And in this story you will understand why a humble 1 cent coin minted in Denver in 1984 has become one of the most famous and valuable coins of all time. And to truly appreciate this, we need to look at the errors, the mistakes, and the endless possibilities that combine to make this coin a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. So let us go back to 1984, when the United States Mint in Denver was producing billions of Lincoln cents struck on the copper-plated zinc planchets that had been introduced in 1982 to replace the heavier and more expensive solid copper cents, and the vast majority of those coins were struck perfectly within the normal tolerances of minting standards and entered circulation without anyone thinking twice about them. But among those billions, a handful of mistakes occurred, and in that handful was one extraordinary coin that would later be recognized as worth a fortune beyond imagination. The 1984 D cent. That combined some of the most dramatic minting errors ever seen, and the first thing that makes this coin so remarkable is the possibility that it was struck on the wrong planchette, because while it should have been on a copper-plated zinc blank weighing 2.5 grams, this particular coin has been reported to weigh 3.11 grams, which means it was struck on a leftover solid copper planchette from before 1982. And the fact that such a blank could have remained at the mint for years before being accidentally used in 1984 is extraordinary and almost impossible. Yet history has shown us that such leftovers do occasionally make it into production, and when they do, they create some of the rarest coins known. But that is only the beginning of this coin's story, because in addition to the wrong planchette, this 1984 D cent also shows evidence of a famous double die obverse error, with strong doubling on Lincoln's ear, a variety sometimes called the extra ear double die, and in this coin the doubling is even more dramatic, spreading into the inscriptions "Liberty" and "I in God We Trust," creating bold and unmistakable doubled letters and details that stand out even to the naked eye. And doubled die coins are some of the most collected and valuable errors in all of numismatics because they represent a mistake in the die-making process itself and not just a fleeting striking anomaly, which means they are part of history and highly prized. But the errors do not stop there, because this coin also appears to have been struck slightly off-center, leaving a crescent of blank metal visible on the edge and pushing parts of the design out of alignment. an error that immediately attracts attention and adds significant value. And even more unusual is the possibility that it was a broad strike, struck without the collar that normally keeps the metal contained during the strike, causing the planchet to spread outward and creating a coin that is wider than normal with flat rims. And then there are the reports of dramatic die cracks and cuds on this coin, raised ridges, and blobs of extra metal formed when the die itself began to break apart under pressure, leaving behind striking scars on the finished piece. And these cracks and cuds are like a fingerprint of the minting process, showing exactly how the equipment was failing and producing a one-of-a-kind coin. And when you combine all these factors together, you get a coin that is not only an error but a cascade of multiple errors, layered on top of one another, making it one of the rarest and most fascinating coins in history. And to make matters even more astonishing, the coin is said to be in near-perfect mint state condition, virtually untouched by circulation, with sharp luster and details preserved as though it had just left the press. And in coin collecting, condition is everything, because the sharper and clearer the details, the more valuable the coin becomes. And in this case, the pristine condition makes the already dramatic errors stand out even more vividly, creating an unparalleled piece of numismatic art. And this is why collectors and experts have attached such an incredible value to it, because it is literally one of a kind, a coin that combines wrong planchet rarity, dramatic doubled die features, striking misalignments, broad strike anomalies, die cracks, and mint state preservation, all in a single coin, something that has perhaps never been seen before in the Lincoln Cent series. And when you think about how collectors and wealthy investors behave at auctions, it is not hard to imagine the bidding wars that would erupt over such a coin. Because in this world, it is not just about owning a piece of metal, but about owning a piece of history, a mistake that should never have existed, a coin that tells a story of the fallibility of man and machine and the magic of accidents that slip through quality control to become treasures for the ages. And when you add in the fact that the Lincoln Cent is the most widely collected coin in American history, with millions of people hunting for varieties, errors, and special specimens, the demand for a coin like this becomes almost insatiable. And that demand, combined with absolute uniqueness, is what drives the value into the hundreds of millions. So while to an outsider it might seem absurd to say a penny is worth $190 million, within the context of coin collecting it makes sense, because this coin is not just a penny. It is a legend, a unique artifact, and a symbol of the endless possibilities of numismatics. And the story of its discovery only adds to the mystique, because it is said that the coin was not initially found by a professional dealer or a wealthy investor, but by an ordinary individual who noticed something strange about it and set it aside, only later realizing with the help of experts that what they had was perhaps the greatest modern era coin ever found. And this is what makes the world of coins so endlessly captivating. The idea that treasures like this can still be hiding in plain sight, in change jars, in bankrolls, in old collections forgotten in attics and basements, waiting for someone observant enough to notice the details. And the story of the 1984 D cent worth $190 million serves as inspiration to collectors everywhere, reminding us that sometimes the smallest, most overlooked things can carry unimaginable value when chance, history, and human error combine. And beyond the incredible price tag, this coin carries a deeper meaning, because it represents the unpredictability of life, the way that accidents can become art, and the way that mistakes can sometimes become masterpieces. And so when you hold a coin like this in your hand, you are not just holding a piece of currency, you are holding a piece of history, a story of machines, mint workers, and chance that converged to create something irreplaceable. And that is why the 1984 D penny, valued at $190 million, is far more than just a coin. It is a symbol of what is possible in the world of collecting, a reminder to always look closely, to always keep searching, and to never underestimate the potential value of even the most humble objects, because hidden within them may lie the next great discovery that will captivate imaginations and redefine what we believe is possible in the world of numismatics. Next, 1994 D1 cent USA coin. Today, as we dive into another absolutely fascinating and almost unbelievable story from the world of rare and error coins, where the tiniest details can transform an ordinary piece of pocket change into a life-changing treasure. And today we are going to talk about the 1994 D. Lincoln 1-cent coin that has stunned collectors, baffled historians, and ignited bidding wars among wealthy investors because of its staggering value of $60 million. And yes, you heard that correctly. A single penny minted in 1994 at the Denver Mint has been estimated at a worth of $60 million due to the incredible combination of minting mistakes, striking anomalies, and rare possibilities that converged to create one of the most valuable error coins ever known. And in this story you are going to understand why this coin is so special, why the errors it carries are unlike almost anything else in the hobby, and how such a humble cent can turn into a once-in-a-lifetime numismatic masterpiece that continues to capture the imaginations of collectors everywhere. So let's start with the background. Because in 1994 the United States Mint in Denver produced billions of Lincoln cents as part of the long-running Memorial Reverse Design series, with the obverse featuring Abraham Lincoln's bust and the reverse showing the Lincoln Memorial. And most of those billions of coins were struck flawlessly and entered circulation without any special value beyond their 1-cent face value. But as in all mass production systems, errors happen, and when they do, sometimes they are minor curiosities that collectors notice but do not place great value on. But other times the mistakes are so dramatic, so unusual, and so impossible to replicate that they elevate the coin into legendary status. And that is exactly what happened with this 1994 D cent that has become known as one of the most remarkable errors ever recorded, because the first factor that stands out is the possibility that this coin was struck on the wrong planchet, because while it should have been struck on a copper-plated zinc planchet weighing 2.5 grams, there is evidence that this extraordinary specimen was instead struck on a leftover copper planchet weighing 3.11 grams, a throwback to the pre-1982 composition that had long been discontinued, and the fact that such a blank could still be present at the Mint more than a decade later and accidentally fed into the presses is astonishing. But even more astonishing is the possibility that the planchet may not have been intended for a US cent at all but perhaps for a foreign coin, since the Denver Mint occasionally produced coinage for other nations. And if that is the case, then this coin is not only a wrong planchet error but also a crossover between US and foreign coinage, making it nearly priceless in terms of rarity. But the wrong planchet is only the beginning, because this coin also shows evidence of a doubled die on the obverse, with dramatic doubling visible on the inscriptions "I in God We Trust," "Liberty," and the date 1994 itself, giving the coin a bold, almost ghost-like doubling effect that is instantly recognizable even to the naked eye. And doubled die errors are among the most collected and valuable mistakes in the hobby, because they are not caused by a random striking accident but by a flaw in the creation of the die itself, meaning that every coin struck by that die carries the same doubling, and in this case the doubling is said to be among the strongest seen in the 1990s, making this coin a spectacular rarity. And then there are the striking anomalies, because the coin is reported to have been struck off-center, with the design shifted noticeably toward one side and leaving a crescent of blank planchet exposed on the rim, an error that immediately catches the eye and adds dramatic appeal. And to make things even more extraordinary, it appears that the coin was also broad-struck, meaning that the collar that normally restrains the coin during striking was missing, allowing the metal to expand outward and giving the coin a wider than normal diameter with flat, unfinished rims. And as if that weren't enough, the coin also displays die cracks and possibly even a cud, raised lines, and blobs of metal created when the die itself began to fracture and break apart during production. And such features are highly prized by collectors because they are unique signatures of a particular die's failure and can never be replicated. And all of these errors, wrong planchet, double die obverse, off-center strike, broad strike anomaly, die cracks and cuds, combine to make this 1994 D center coin of almost mythical status. And when you add the fact that the coin has survived in near perfect mint state condition, showing little to no wear and preserving all of its dramatic errors in sharp clarity, you end up with a specimen that is truly one of a kind, a coin that simply cannot be matched by any other known piece, and that is why experts and collectors have placed its value at $60 million, because in the world of numismatics uniqueness is everything, and the more unusual and dramatic the error, the more demand it creates. And demand drives value, especially when wealthy investors compete for ownership of such treasures. And while to an outsider the idea of a penny being worth $60 million might sound absurd, within the context of coin collecting it is not only possible but logical, because the Lincoln cent is the most heavily studied and collected coin in American history, and errors of this magnitude are the holy grail for those who dedicate their lives to finding and studying them. And part of what makes this story so inspiring is the idea that this coin may have originally been found by someone who was not even a professional collector but simply an ordinary person who noticed something unusual about it and decided to hang on to it, only to later realize with expert confirmation that they had discovered one of the most valuable coins in existence. And that is what makes coin collecting so exciting and magical, the fact that hidden treasures still exist in circulation, waiting to be discovered in pocket change, in bankrolls, or in old forgotten jars of coins, and the 1994 D cent worth $60 million is proof of that possibility, a reminder that even the smallest and most overlooked objects can hold unimaginable value when history, error, and chance align in just the right way. And beyond its monetary worth, this coin tells a deeper story about the minting process itself, about the fallibility of machines and human oversight, and about how mistakes can sometimes create beauty and rarity that endures for generations. And when you hold a coin like this, you are not just holding a piece of metal, you are holding a piece of history, a story encapsulated in copper and zinc that tells of a moment when something went wrong at the Denver Mint in 1994 and yet produced a masterpiece by accident. And that is the essence of why collectors love error coins, because they are tangible evidence of history's unpredictability and the magic of chance. And so as we think about this 1994 D penny and its unimaginable $60 million value, we are reminded that the world of coins is far deeper and richer than most people realize, full of hidden stories, hidden treasures, and endless possibilities. And for those who are passionate enough to keep looking and observant enough to notice the details, the next big discovery may be just around the corner. And that is why the tale of the 1994 D Lincoln cent is not just about money but about history, passion, discovery, and the thrill of the hunt. And it stands as one of the greatest examples of how mistakes can sometimes create legends. And that is why this humble penny minted in 1994 at the Denver Mint is remembered today as one of the most valuable coins ever produced, a $60 million masterpiece born from errors, preserved by chance, and celebrated as a symbol of everything that makes coin collecting one of the most fascinating hobbies in the world. Next, 2005 1 cent USA coin, where small details and tiny minting anomalies can turn something as common as a 1 cent coin into a treasure worth millions. And today we are going to talk about one of the most astonishing stories in numismatics, a story that revolves around the 2005 Lincoln 1 cent coin which, due to its rare errors, unusual mistakes, and remarkable possibilities, has reached an estimated value of $23 million. Yes, that's right, a single penny minted in 2005 has stunned collectors and investors alike by fetching a value that most people would never even imagine. And in this video we will take you through the background of the 2005 cent, the details of the errors that make it so unique, the different possibilities that collectors have debated, and why exactly this coin has become one of the most famous and valuable rarities in modern coin collecting. So let's begin by setting the stage, because 2005 was a very typical year for the US Mint in terms of producing billions of Lincoln cents for circulation. The Lincoln Memorial reverse design was still being used, having been in place since 1959, and the obverse featured the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln created by Victor David Brenner. But what makes this story so extraordinary is that while billions of coins rolled off the presses without issue, a handful slipped through with mistakes so spectacular that they transformed those small copper-plated zinc pieces into legends, and one coin in particular has risen above the rest, because it combines multiple dramatic errors that almost never occur together, and it has survived in such remarkable condition that it is now considered unique, and the value placed on it is nothing short of jaw-dropping. But before diving into the specific errors, let's remember that the normal composition of a 2005 cent was 97.5% zinc and 2.5% copper plating, weighing 2.5 grams, and struck with precision at the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints, yet somehow the coin we are discussing today defies all those norms, because it appears that this coin may have been struck on a wrong planchet entirely, one that does not match the usual zinc core and copper plating, and experts have speculated that it may have been struck on a leftover pre-1982 copper planchet weighing 3.11 grams, which should have been long gone by 2005, and that in itself would already make it a massive rarity. But even more shocking is the possibility that the planchet was actually intended for a foreign coin that happened to be produced at the US Mint during that time, meaning that this 2005 cent might not only be a wrong composition but also a crossover wrong planchet error. And when we add to that the fact that this coin also displays clear signs of a doubled die on the obverse, with dramatic doubling on Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and the date 2005, we suddenly realize we are dealing with a coin that has multiple layers of error stacked on top of each other, and that is not even the end of it, because this coin also shows an off-center strike where the design is noticeably shifted toward the left, leaving a crescent of blank planchet visible on the edge. And as if that weren't enough, the coin also seems to have been broad-struck outside of the retaining collar, giving it a slightly larger diameter and flatter rims than normal. And collectors absolutely love these dramatic misstrikes because they immediately stand out even to the untrained eye. And what makes this coin even more spectacular is that along with all of these anomalies, it also features die cracks, tiny raised lines of metal created when the die itself began to fracture. And one of these cracks is so large that it has formed what collectors call a cud, a blob of metal filling in part of the rim where the die completely broke away. And cuds are highly desirable because they are unique to that specific die failure, meaning that no two cud errors are exactly the same. And when you combine all of these things, wrong planchet, doubled die, off-center strike, broad strike, die cracks, cud, you get a coin that is truly one of a kind, an absolute masterpiece of minting error that could not be replicated even if the mint tried. And that uniqueness is exactly why it has been valued at $23 million, because in coin collecting, rarity and demand are what drive prices, and when you have a coin that is both visually stunning and historically significant, collectors and investors will bid sky-high amounts to own it, and that is precisely what happened with this coin. And what makes the story even more exciting is the idea that such a coin may have been discovered by an ordinary person who just happened to look closely at their change, because history is full of similar discoveries, and in fact some of the most valuable error coins ever known have turned up in pocket change, coin rolls, and old jars forgotten in attics, and that possibility is what keeps collectors searching and dreaming. Because the idea that you could stumble upon a $23 million coin in your everyday life is just irresistible, and beyond its monetary value, this 2005 era cent tells us something deeper about the minting process itself, because it shows how despite modern technology, despite billions of coins being produced with near-perfect precision, mistakes still slip through, and when they do, they can create beauty, rarity, and value far beyond what anyone would expect. And that's why error coins are not just pieces of metal but pieces of history, little accidents that tell big stories. And the story of this 2005 cent is one of the most compelling of all, because it captures the imagination, it inspires the hunt for hidden treasures, and it proves that even the most ordinary objects can hold extraordinary secrets. And as collectors study this coin, they see not just the mistakes but the miracle of its survival, the fact that it was never damaged or lost, and the fact that it came to light in such pristine condition that its errors can be appreciated in full detail. And that is part of why it has reached such a staggering value, because condition matters just as much as rarity in determining a coin's worth, and this coin has both. And so as we reflect on the journey of this 2005 cent from the Denver Mint presses to becoming a $23 million legend, we are reminded that the world of numismatics is full of surprises, full of stories waiting to be told, and full of treasures waiting to be found. And for anyone passionate enough to look closely at their coins, the next great discovery could be just around the corner. And that is why this coin will forever stand as a shining example of the magic of minting mistakes, a symbol of how errors can sometimes create perfection, and proof that even the humblest penny can become one of the most valuable coins in the world. Last 1991 cent USA coin. Today, as we take you into another unbelievable yet fascinating journey through the world of rare and valuable coins, where a simple 1-cent piece that many of us overlook every single day can transform into a life-changing fortune because of minting errors and mistakes that turn ordinary into extraordinary. And in this story, we are going to explore the mystery and majesty of the 1990 Lincoln 1-cent coin, a coin that on the surface looks like any other penny from that year, but which has been valued by collectors and investors at an astonishing $70 million. And yes, you heard that correctly. 1 cent has been transformed into $70 million of value simply because of a series of mistakes and possibilities that came together in one of the most dramatic examples of numismatic rarity ever recorded. And this is what makes coin collecting so thrilling, because you never know when a small overlooked detail can represent the key to immense value. And with the 1990 penny, the errors and anomalies are so significant and so unusual that this coin has become legendary among collectors. So let us start with the background. In 1990, the United States Mint produced billions of Lincoln cents featuring the long-running memorial reverse designed by Frank Gasparo and the obverse with Victor David Brenner's iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln. And by this point in history, the Mint had been striking cents on copper-plated zinc planchets weighing 2.5 grams since 1982, when the switch was made from the heavier 3.11-gram bronze composition. And in 1990, most of these coins were struck perfectly with no flaws. But as always, when you are producing billions of coins, mistakes do happen. And sometimes those mistakes are minor curiosities like small die cracks or slightly off-center strikes. But once in a while something happens at the Mint that creates a coin so spectacularly different that it stands out as unique. And that is exactly the case with the extraordinary 1990 cent that has captured so much attention, because this coin is believed to have been struck on the wrong planchette entirely, with strong evidence suggesting that instead of the expected copper-plated zinc composition, it was accidentally struck on an older leftover bronze planchette weighing 3.11 grams. Which should have been retired nearly a decade earlier. And how such a planchette could have remained in the coining facility for so long is a mystery in itself, but even more incredible is that some experts believe it may have even been struck on a foreign planchette intended for coins of another nation, since the US Mint occasionally produced coinage for other countries. And if that is the case, it means this coin represents not just a wrong composition, but also a crossover minting error, which makes it extremely rare. And beyond that initial anomaly, the 1990 penny also displays clear doubled die features on the obverse, with dramatic doubling visible on "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and the date itself, making the 1990 stand out with ghost-like duplicated impressions that can be seen even without magnification. And doubled dies are among the most sought-after errors in all of coin collecting because they are not caused by a single strike mistake but by a flaw in the die-making process itself, meaning that every coin struck with that die shows the doubling. But this particular example shows such dramatic and unique doubling that it is believed to be from a die that was almost immediately retired, making surviving examples extremely limited. And then, as if those features were not enough, this coin also exhibits evidence of being struck slightly off-center, with the entire design shifted toward one edge and leaving a blank crescent of planchette showing, a type of error that adds immediate visual appeal. And in addition to the off-center strike, there are signs that the coin was broad-struck outside of the collar, giving it a wider and flatter appearance than normal with missing rim details, and collectors are drawn to such dramatic striking errors because they instantly show that something went very wrong during minting. And adding yet another layer of uniqueness are the die cracks present across parts of the design, small raised lines caused by the breaking down of the dies, and in some cases these cracks are so large that they form cuds, areas of extra metal on the rim where a piece of the die has broken away entirely, and every cud is unique to the specific die failure, which makes each coin with such an error essentially one of a kind. And so when you put all of these things together, wrong planchette, double die obverse, off-center strike, broad strike, die cracks, and cuds, you realize you are dealing with a coin unlike any other, a perfect storm of minting mistakes that combine to create an object of immense rarity and immense value. And this is why experts and collectors have placed the value of this 1990 cent at $70 million, because in numismatics the value of a coin is not just determined by its age but by its rarity, its demand, and its story, and this coin has all three in abundance. And what makes the story even more captivating is the possibility that this coin was discovered by an ordinary person who simply happened to notice something unusual about it. Because many of the greatest coin discoveries in history have come from everyday people checking their change or going through coin rolls, and that is what keeps collectors and treasure hunters motivated. The idea that the next great discovery could be sitting unnoticed in a jar of pennies or passed across a store counter. And beyond its monetary worth, this 1990 penny tells a powerful story about the minting process itself and about the nature of mistakes. Because what was intended to be a simple 1-cent piece became a symbol of chance and history, a reminder that even in highly controlled industrial processes errors slip through, and when they do they sometimes create objects that future generations will revere. And that is why this coin is so much more than just money. It is history in your hand. It is a work of accidental art created by machines and human oversight. And its $70 million value is as much about what it represents as about what it is. And for collectors it represents the thrill of discovery, the joy of owning something unique, and the connection to a story that stretches across decades. And when you look closely at this coin you see not just Lincoln's portrait but the story of a minting process that went wrong in just the right ways to create something unforgettable. And as we think about this incredible coin, it inspires us to look more closely at our own change, to wonder what hidden treasures might still be out there waiting to be found. Because the 1990 penny worth $70 million is living proof that treasures are still circulating among us, hidden in plain sight, and that the smallest details can hold the greatest value. And this story reminds us that coin collecting is not just a hobby but a treasure hunt, a mystery, and a way to connect with history in a tangible way. And that is why this 1990 penny will forever stand as one of the greatest era coins ever known, a $70 million masterpiece born out of mistakes and preserved by chance, celebrated as a symbol of everything that makes numismatics one of the most fascinating pursuits in the world.